Thank you. Thank you for inviting me along this evening to talk about dark skies. The talk should last probably 20-25 minutes, and there'll be an opportunity for questions at the end. So, swiftly moving on, looking at the background of dark skies, between really the early 1990s and the present date, the amount of light pollution in Europe and in this country in particular has been increasing, and was for a while puzzling why this should be, but I think we've now got to the bottom of it. The first reason is the invention of the light emitting diode, or LED. LEDs started to get used in streetlights around about the turn of the century. And the reason that they were used was twofold. One is that they are much cheaper to produce than the old sodium lights. And also they are much cheaper to maintain as well. In fact, you can probably install a couple of lights for the price of one old sodium light. Also, they don't have certain negative aspects such as mercury lights, which are classed as hazardous waste and so on. So is sort of one reason why lighting has increased. County councils could install two lights for the price of one. But the other reason, interestingly, is the reason of what they call the law of unintended consequences. And that is road safety. And the reason being that anybody who has ever been on a driver awareness course will know what streetlights mean. And streetlights, as you probably all know, mean that it's a 30-mile-an-hour limit. Or in Wales, sometimes a 20-mile-an-hour limit. Yes, a 30-mile-an-hour limit means that if you want to regulate the speed of cars, you need to have streetlights in. So the unintended consequence of road safety measures was an increase in the proliferation of streetlights throughout the country. Hopefully by the end of this talk, you'll see that the use of appropriate streetlights and also other lighting will reduce light pollution. It will have a positive impact on the environment, wildlife and human health. And will also show that maybe Preston is a sort of place that other communities might want to copy. And also the appropriate streetlights will enhance the nighttime character of the place and help also regenerate Preston as making it a special place that people might want to visit. This photograph here is of the Triangulum galaxy M33. It's a spiral galaxy, not unlike our own Milky Way, and it is the faintest and also the furthest object you will ever see with the naked eye. It is visible in the autumn skies, but you need very dark skies and no night pollution to see it. And with the proliferation of streetlights and sky glow, we're not going to be able to see it for much longer, and that's not really a legacy I'd like to leave our children and grandchildren. Also, incidentally, it is the furthest object you'll ever see with the naked eye at 2.7 million light years away, which basically means that the light we're seeing from this galaxy now left that galaxy 2.7 million years ago. And to put that into perspective, human beings hadn't even evolved up to that time. Here is a view from Space Guard Centre looking south towards Preston. And it's one of the iconic pictures that I saw that got me interested in this in the first place. Uh, the Space Guard Centre is a working observatory, and it's the country's Near Earth Objects Information Centre. So basically, what they're doing is that they're looking for asteroids and comets and other things which might have our name on it. And they were finding that the light pollution from Prestine was interfering with their measurements and with their observations. So going back to LED streetlights, the first LED streetlights were very cheap to produce, and the cheapest lights that they could produce produced what's called a very high color temperature, very cold blue-white light, as you can see in this image here. That blue-white light produced a lot of glare, a lot of reflections, and a lot of deep dark shadows because of the contrast between the very bright lights and the surrounding area. And what was happening was that it was discouraging people from going out at night and basically reclaiming the night, as it were. So what was required was more even lighting and a lot more warmer colours. And this is something that we'll see that we're working towards. Just to explain color temperature a little bit more, this is like a spectrum of color temperature, going from around about 6,000 Kelvin, which is in the sort of blue-white sector, way down to around about 2,000 Kelvin, which is a lot softer, yellowier light. And that's what we're aiming for a number of different reasons. But it's not just the color of the light, it's what you do with it. And as you can see from this image here, you've got light spilling all over the place. You've got upward lights, you've got light trespass into people's windows and so on. And only a small proportion of the light you can see here is actually useful light, which is going where it's needed, down on the ground. So not only do you need a change in color temperature, but you need shielding on the light so that it produces light, which is just where it's needed, as you can see in this image here. But that's not the whole story. If you look at domestic lighting as well, you can see that the light on the left spills light in all different directions. But if it were to be replaced by the one on the right, it is directed where it's needed. And if you were then to couple that with an appropriate light bulb or luminaire, which gave you a good softer, lower color temperature, then you wouldn't have very much in the way of glare or light spill, and would do a lot to reduce light pollution domestically as well. So how do you go about measuring light pollution? Well, this scale here is called the Bortle scale, or bottle scale, as some people call it. And it goes from number 1, which is an excellent dark sky site, which is what you'd expect to find in a dark sky reserve, such as the Brecon Beacons or the Elan Valley, all the way through to number 8, number 9, which is an inner city dark sky, sorry, inner city site, which you see virtually nothing. Now, in a suburban town, rural environment that we've got here in Powys, where we haven't got very many big cities or large conurbations, what we're really aiming for is somewhere between 3 and 4. And this is what we're aiming for in Prestine. So how do you measure light pollution? Well, you measure it with something called a sky quality meter, which is this image here. The sky quality meter takes a measurement. I won't go into the details of how it does it, but basically, the higher the figure you've got, the darker the sky. So it measures the darkness of the night sky. So for a dark sky reserve, for example, the Brecon Beacons, you will be looking at a figure around about between 21 and 22. For your average rural night sky, you're looking at a figure around about 19, and then it would progressively go further down as you went into more sort of urban conurbations. There is a formula and a scale that you can convert the Bortle scale or these light measurements into the Bortle scale, so we can make a direct comparison. So, what's the cost of lighting up the night sky? Well, there's around about 7.5 million streetlights in the UK. And on average, they waste between 15 and 20% of their light, which causes sky glow. It goes up into the night sky and is wasted. And if you do the maths, and I didn't, but I'm relying on somebody else who did, the cost of lighting up the night sky by street, domestic and commercial lighting exceeds £1 billion a year for the UK. And if you convert that wasted energy into tons of carbon dioxide, you're looking at around about 800,000 tons of carbon dioxide for the UK, which sounds a very big number, but you can't really sort of get a handle on big figures like that. But if you were to convert it into tons of coal, you're looking at between 300,000 and 500,000 tons of coal per year. But putting it another way, you're looking at just under around about half the output in power from a 500 megawatt coal-fired power station just to light up the night sky. But it doesn't have to be that way. As we all see, we can reduce things by having the right stuff in place. And then, of course, you've got the impact on wildlife and human health. Light pollution affects all sorts of animals, and it affects ourselves as well. The bird in the top left-hand corner of the screen is the European redwing. The European redwing comes over in large numbers to this country from Eastern Europe every autumn. And it has its summer holidays, or it thinks it's its summer holidays because it's a lot warmer than Russia in this country. And they all actually migrate at night. And of course, light pollution will have an effect on their migration. And work has been done to show that they've been sent off course by light pollution from our towns and ended up in the wrong place. Also, bird mating behavior is governed by day length as well. So, and also it's been found that light pollution has been interfering with their breeding behavior because they've been breeding at the wrong time of year because of light pollution. But I think it's later in the year that it actually is. And that has obviously put stress on the birds. They may be mating, laying eggs when their food source might not be available. So that has had an effect on wildlife as far as birds are concerned. The bat in the photograph there is a lesser horseshoe bat. Mid Wales is really the last bastion of the lesser horseshoe bat. In some parts of England, it's virtually extinct now, but numbers here are fairly high. The lesser horseshoe bat is quite a small bat. It emerges fairly late at night, and it's got an aversion to streetlights. When it goes out foraging, it actively avoids them. The main reason being is that it's quite a slow flying bat, and if it's illuminated by streetlights, then it's likely to be attacked by predators like owls and hawks and things like that, and eaten. So, which isn't good news if you're a lesser horseshoe bat. But again, light pollution has an effect. And then as far as wildlife is concerned, we've got insects. I can remember on a summer evening going for a drive on a summer evening and having to stop every few miles to wipe the insects off my windscreen. That doesn't happen anymore. And there's been a somewhat of a severe crash in insect numbers. Light pollution has played its part in this, along with changes in agricultural practice. Insects navigate by the moon, and so they can fuse street lights with moonlight and start spiraling round the street lights, try to orientate themselves, and eventually they will either die of exhaustion or they'll get eaten by things like insects. So that is one of the causes of the insect crashing, in my opinion. And then finally, we've got human health. Now, it's been found that blue-white light in particular, strong blue-white light, which you get in street lights, can suppress the production of melatonin in the brain. And melatonin controls sleep patterns, so it's likely to give you a rotten kip. But also recent work in the States has shown that because melatonin is a hormone, it's all related to the endocrine system in the body. And they've found links between both prostate cancer and also breast cancer in humans. So what did we do? Well, initially I contacted the Commission for Dark Skies, who are the guys that manage all things dark skies in the UK. And they put me in touch with this genius lighting designer named Kiram Asifagulu. Now, Kiram taught me more than I ever wanted to know about streetlights, but together we came up with a cunning plan to present a case for dark skies to Preston and Norton Town Council. Well, there was a lot of toing and froing, but eventually the town council came on board, and jointly we lobbied Powys County Council to replace the street lights in Preston. Powys County Council were very supportive. They said, we love this idea, we'd love to help you, but we ain't got any money. So they politely told us to go away, and it then went quiet for a year or so. But behind the scenes, the Welsh Government were getting very interested in dark skies as well. And as I understand it, they gave Powys money to pilot a dark skies project. And because we'd shoved our heads above the parapet, press team was a pilot for installing dark skies compliant streetlights, which were installed in 2022. And we were the first community in Powys to have dark skies lighting, and probably one of the first in the UK. Luckily, because we'd measured using the light meter that I showed you earlier, light pollution before and after street light replacement, we were able to show whether or not we had darker skies. And this is the results that we got. Excuse me, the results in 2021 are given in orange, and those in 2023 are given in green. And as you can see from the diagram, we're looking for an increase in number, as it were, which will show that it's actually a darker sky. And you can see there in the majority of cases, the readings are higher, therefore the sky is actually darker. There's less light pollution with the new lights than there were with the old. But there's a couple of flyers. You can see there's two readings in red there, which are actually lower. And you might wonder why that might be. And the reason is pretty straightforward, because when Powys County Council replaced all the street lights with dark sky compliant lights in 2022, they also repaired all the lights which weren't working. So initially in 2021, when I took the readings in those two sites, there wasn't a street light there. But when I went back in 2023, they'd actually repaired the street light, and there was a street light where I was going to take the readings. So I got a lower reading in that particular occasion because there was a street light where there wasn't a street light before. So that explains those readings there. But generally speaking, we're looking at a very positive aspect. So what were the benefits? Well, because the new street lights use a lot less energy than the previous lights, we found that we saved around about 20,000 kilowatt hours per year, which in monetary terms, was a cost saving of around about £8,200 a year just for the town. And also, if you converted the energy saving into saving in greenhouse gas emissions, excuse me, we're saving around about 4.5 tons of carbon dioxide a year. And then if you just think about it, this is just a small community of around about 2,700 people. If this were rolled out across Powys, or indeed across Wales, the savings in greenhouse gas emissions would be significant. So what does it look like? Well, here are some photos before and after. So if we're looking here on the left at the assembly rooms, the top photo shows the old lights with lots of glare and reflections and deep shadows. The photo below shows a lot, well, it looks a lot warmer, it looks a lot friendlier, looks a lot more human. The light intensity is more even. And to my mind, it encourages people to go out at night. If you look at the right-hand photo, the top one, notice how in the top photo you can see the bunting in the photo, whereas the bottom one you can't see it, and that's because you're getting a lot of reflections from the street up into the sky from the old lights, which you can't see, which is showing basically that you're not getting as much light pollution going up into the sky. But it's not just light pollution. This is a view of Broad Street in Preston. And this is after the lights had been replaced with the dark sky compliant lights. Now, when initially Powys were going to replace these lights, these are what are called heritage lights. So they are different and more expensive to replace than the standard light that you get in Preston and elsewhere in Powys. And as you can see in the top right-hand photo, you're talking about the sort of lights that look very sort of Victorian. The lights, we trialled a few lights, and the lights that Powys County Council were suggesting didn't really work very well. But one of the things we did when we first set up this project was to investigate crowdfunding. And we set up a GoFundMe site, and we raised some money. In fact, we raised about £1,500, and that, combined with some money that Preston Town Council had, enabled us to upgrade these streetlights to make absolutely splendid lights which emulate gas lights. So Broad Street is a street that people actually visit because of the atmosphere and the street lights which show off the late Georgian and early Victorian architecture splendidly. And I'm talking about sort of the Judge's Lodging House and things like that. So it's not just environmental matters, it's also heritage as well. And this shows off the heritage of Preston tremendously. Well, with the help of Kieran, who has done this sort of thing before, and the town council, we decided we would apply to DarkSky International, who are based in Tucson, Arizona, to become a dark sky community. And after we wrote a quite detailed report and sent through to them, we luckily were awarded dark sky status, and consequently we were the first international dark sky community to be awarded dark sky status in England and Wales, which resulted in some really interesting publicity for Preston. We've had subsequently a couple of visits from the BBC who've done a couple of pieces on Preston. And also there's been an article on Preston in the BBC's Sky at Night magazine. and some other online journals. And also next week we're expecting a visit from a French TV crew who want to do a piece on Prestine, because in France they've got nothing like this at all, and they're really interested to see what they've done. So on the whole, it's been very positive, but we've also been proactive as well, and we've produced some publicity material, and so we've put this up onto YouTube. And I'd like to show you the short video now that we produced, which is drone footage, which we use to monitor and look at light pollution in Prestine at night. So if the technology works okay, you'll see a video. If it doesn't, you may see a video, but you might not hear it. So apologies in advance. I'll set it off now. Okay, I think it's frozen, so see if I can move on. Okay, it moves on. Right. So not only have we produced a video, and we've produced a subsequent one which shows the lights after the street lights have been replaced, but we haven't actually got round to doing a YouTube video on that yet. But that's something which is in hand. But also, not only that, but we've been given an award, or the town council has, for best sustainability initiative by One Voice Wales for the Dark Sky project, which is quite a nice bit of publicity. So moving swiftly on. So what about the future? Well, what about dark sky street lighting in Powys? Well, Powys County Council have committed themselves to replacing all of the street lights in Powys with dark sky compliant lights by 2030. But however, we have an election coming up, so who knows what will happen in the future, but that is the situation at the moment. So what about dark sky communities? Well, there's an opportunity here to have further dark sky communities in Powys. But one thing I would stress is that you need to measure your light pollution before the street lights are replaced, because then you've got a benchmark against which you can be measured. So if you're considering becoming a dark sky community, or even just thinking about it, then I would recommend that you take some dark sky measurements, and then have a think about it once the lights are changed. What about cities? Well, previously cities have really been off the scale. Actually, dark sky cities would be something which would be a fantasy a few years ago, but things are changing, and there is a movement now called the biophilic cities movement, which are cities that make room, make space for nature. And there is a possibility that Dark Skies could piggyback itself onto the back of the biophilic cities movement and maybe introduce Dark Skies lighting within cities. Unfortunately, the only biophilic city in the UK is Birmingham. But personally, I'd like to see that evolve into maybe Swansea or Cardiff. That would be great if we were to be able to promote that in Wales. And then finally, what about Dark Sky Wales? Well, at the moment, around about 20% of Wales by land mass is dark sky compliant. And that is because the national nature reserves, such as the Brecon Beacons, Elan Valley and Snowdonia are all dark sky parks now. And that's around about 20% of Wales. So Wales really is the closest country worldwide to becoming a dark sky country. So that could be possible in the future. Who knows? If you want to contact me to talk about any of this, that's my email address at the bottom of the screen there. So without further ado, have you got any questions?
Thank you very much, Leigh. That was very interesting. I'll kick off with a question and then see what other people might have. Do you want to unshare your screen?
I'll try to, yes.
Yeah.
Stop share. There we go. There we are. Right.
Okay, that's fine. So yeah, but my first question is, what response has there been from the community in Prestine? Have you had comments that it's not as bright as it used to be, or that they can't find their way around, or
no. It's all been very favourable. Obviously, you won't get 100% of any community, but on the whole, it's been very favourable. Because the lighting is a lot softer and a lot warmer. It's a lot more inclusive. There's not as much difference between light and dark. And on the whole, it's encouraged people to go out at night, especially women.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Okay, Anne.
I was wondering how much of a lever the presence of the observatory was.
It was a lever to a certain extent, but it just acted as a trigger for me to get involved in the first place. As you know, Spacecast Centre is based nearer Knighton than it is Prestine. But most, if not all, of the light pollution that they experienced came from Prestine because Knighton is down in a deep valley, so they couldn't see the light from Knighton. Mm-hmm. So it was incidental, but it just sort of triggered in my mind that it would be something that it would be useful to cure.
And you don't have people with, older people with sight failing complaining, because very often you need brighter light when you're older.
Yeah. Yes, we have had some older people saying that they can't see as well, but but if you're talking about sort of residential address, then you can put in your own sort of lights and so on your property, or even carry a torch.
Thanks, Leigh.
Thanks.
Anne. Okay, Laura.
Yeah, fascinatingly, thank you. I was just wondering, did it take quite a few committed individuals from the community to encourage the town council, or was it, quite an easy, I wouldn't say anything's easy, but an easy task with enough enthusiasm and commitment, or was it like a couple of people really driving it forward?
I think it was primarily Kieran who was the lighting designer. I tried a couple of times, and I had a bit of interest from the town council, but they didn't really come on board. And then Kieran came along and he gave this wonderful presentation, and he literally sprinkled stardust over the town council, and they came on board. And after that, it was easy. It was easy sailing, as it were. And we drew up a plan and we took it to Powys County Council.
And was it just you or a few other individuals who were keen on it originally to get Kieran and town council on board?
It was me, some friends and colleagues at March's Astronomy Group, which meets at the Space Guard Centre, and also Transition Prestine as well. They helped a lot.
Amazing. Great job.
Yeah, we took loads of light pollution readings, some of which I went out at night at around about 1 o'clock in the morning to take them, because one of the things I didn't mention in the presentation was because we've got intelligent lights now, they actually go on to half power after 12:30 at night, and that obviously saves money, reduces energy. But strangely, after a few minutes, you don't realize that the lights are on half power. Because your eyes, because the pupils compensate, it just looks like normal. It's quite remarkable, really.
So I've got one more question. You said that it saves about £8,000 a year on reduced electricity costs. You didn't mention how much the whole project cost to install. So what was the total?
I haven't got that figure to hand. It costs around about £250 per luminaire to replace them. But I think the payback period is, from memory, around about 7 years. And I think the lifetime of a luminaire is around about 20 years, something like that. So it will pay for itself. Sort of will break even around about 7 years, I think, around about that from memory, and start paying for itself as a capital expenditure.
Right, okay, that's interesting, because there's is it the Salix funding that requires things to have a payback of around about 7 years, I think. So it could just qualify as an energy saving measure in that respect, by the look of it.
I think it would do, but don't quote me chapter and verse on that, because I haven't got the figures in front of me. But I think the figure of 7 years does come to mind.
Okay, that does seem quite a promising figure.
Well, Powys is going to do it anyway, isn't it? By 2030,
It's good that they are, although they will have to find money from somewhere. But no, it's very good that they are. Okay, I've got one more question then. Can you now see the Triangulum Galaxy from Prestine?
Well, just about. From my eyesight isn't very good, but in theory I can see it from my back garden. Yes, if I use my imagination.
Okay, anyone else got any further questions, or shall we draw that to a close? Well, thank you very much, Leigh, for coming along and explaining that to us. And it's very good news that Powys are taking it on board and looking to roll that out for the whole of Powys.
If any community wants to be, or is interested in becoming a Dark Skies community, and they want to learn how to use a light meter, then contact me on the email address I gave.
Okay, thanks. Well, and it's fine for me to circulate your details.
Yeah.
The people that have come along. Okay, I'm going to stop recording now.